client?
Well, Mr. Hamilton was charged with a murder that was committed in 1991, the murder of Nathaniel Cash. And he was convicted based on the testimony of one witness, whose name is Jewel Smith. And Jewel Smith, at the time of the murder itself, spoke with the Detective DeLuisa, who was the first person to interview her, and said she didn't see anything. She was inside. Then she met with Detective Scarcella, and all of a sudden she's saying that Mr. Hamilton committed the crime. And she testified against Mr. Hamilton at trial, and he was convicted solely on the basis of her testimony. There was no other real evidence against him. No confession, there was no forensics. Certainly in 1991 there wouldn't have been DNA, there was no ballistics, no other witnesses, no video. It was her testimony. It's a one-witness case.
And Scarcella coerced her into changing her testimony, and the officers threatened her. She had left, she had come back, and then she immediately, within a short time, recanted. And for years, she recanted her testimony and said she was manipulated and threatened to finger Derek Hamilton.
21 years later, what's the story now?
Well, what happened was, like Mr. Suri said, Jewel Smith came forward right after the trial. And she testified that she had lied at the trial, and that the reason she lied was that Detective Scarcella said that if she didn't finger Mr. Hamilton, he would charge her with the crime. There was a hearing held on the recantation in front of Judge Rappaport. This was in 1993. And they brought in Detective Scarcella, who said, no, I never threatened her like that. She's afraid of the defendant's family. That's why she's doing all that she's doing. There was no evidence of any specific threats or even non-specific threats. Ms. Smith denied being threatened, but the judge decided, well, I believed what she said at trial. I don't believe her now. Derek stays in. Later on, okay. And then since then, there has been a steady unfolding of evidence of innocence. Tassim Douglas and another witness came forward to identify the real shooter, whose name was Money Will Dawson. And they too had a hearing, and Scarcella was brought in, and they were discredited and disbelieved because of Scarcella. Two alibi witnesses came forward, Kelly Turner and Devette Mahan, Kelly Turner was a New Haven police officer. Saying that at the time the murder was committed, Mr. Hamilton was in New Haven. Couldn't have committed that murder without either time travel or field artillery. And the court wouldn't even hear from them. And since then, Mr. Hamilton has been fighting to have these witnesses heard, have his case reinvestigated, have his innocence recognized. And there were really two things that were breakthroughs in the case. The first being that these allegations came out against Detective Scarcella and other cases, which have led the Kings County District Attorney to take a second look at a lot of the prosecutions that Mr. Scarcella was involved in, especially the ones that were a little dodgy to begin with, such as one-witness cases like this. And the second thing was that in January of 2014, in fact, just 6 days short of a year ago, the Appellate Division, Second Department, a few blocks over, held that Mr. Hamilton was entitled to a hearing on his claim of actual innocence. And this was the first time that an appellate court in New York has ever recognized what's called a freestanding actual innocence claim, meaning that, it's a claim based on evidence of innocence alone without some other error in the trial or some other error by an attorney. And the combination of those two things led the district attorney's office to begin a reinvestigation of this case, which included, according to ADA Mark Hale, a revisit to the crime scene in which it was determined that Jewel Smith's testimony at trial was contrary to the scientific evidence.
Now, how many other cases are involved? I'm sorry that I cut you short, but just to get us somebody that we're looking for, how many other cases are being investigated under the same officer?
Mr. Suri?
Yeah, sure. There are upwards of 100 cases, 70 that the district attorney claims and says that are being looked at, and that there are different stages of investigation. That's a question for the district attorney. We're pleased that he is come along and has agreed to exonerate Derek, but there are dozens of other guys, some still in prison, some who will be here today, who have been served 27 years. What's really interesting about this case, it was Derek Hamilton and some of the other men in prison who discovered Scarcella's involvement. When they were comparing cases, his name kept popping up, and they started realizing this. So it was really the men in prison who turned up Scarcella's notorious and troubling involvement in many of these cases, and many of the cases involved a false confession or coercion of witnesses who claim one thing, like in Derek's case, she was not at the crime scene, but an hour later she claimed that she was.
Just tell us again what this day means to you.
Well, this day means more than just to me, to my wife, to my defense team, Jonathan Ellison, who stood by me. We have been fighting this case for a long time, and I mean, when you got the appellate division ruling in January, that was the beginning of a new day. But for me, it is exhilarating. It's very, very a grateful day for me to stand here being about to be declared innocent. It's the world to me. It's what I've been fighting for 25 years.
And you've always maintained your innocence, right?
From the day I was arrested, I mean, to now, I've maintained my innocence. And the same evidence that was there then is here now.
And they offered you deals, right? I mean, tell us how tempting that was to you.
When you say tempting, what you say?
Did they offer you deals like if you plead?
Well, they offered me to, a parole board. They wanted me to say I was guilty to get out early, and I refused. I mean, I could not say I killed the man that I didn't kill.
What are your sentiments towards Detective Scarcella?
Well, I mean, I have no sentiments for him. I have prison for him. I think he belongs in jail.
How did you keep your hopes up the whole time?
1 minute. What role? He was the person that arrested me. He was the person that manufactured the evidence. He was the person that took a non-witness to the precinct and forced her to say that she seen a murder that she did not see. He was the sole person responsible for that.
And how did you keep your optimism up and your hopes up and the strength?
I knew I was innocent, and I had to study. I had to basically read law books, and that was my sanity. If there was no law books in prison, I'd probably have been in the insane asylum.
Thank you. And you've come here, though, with other people in a similar situation. Tell me why you want to do that.
Well, I have Kevin Smith, Sunday Moses, and amongst others. These are the guys like Petey Brother Baby. These are guys that was wrongfully convicted. I stand with them every day. We advocate for the wrongfully convicted, and I know he's innocent, and I stand for him every day.
What's the next step for you? What are you
Well, the next step is a vacation. After the vacation, I come back and try to work on some more cases that I'll be involved in.
Where are you going to go?
I don't know yet. I'm still thinking about that.
Got a whole world to look at, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mission now, seems like?
Well, I mean, it's the same mission. There's wrongful convicted people in prison, people that are left behind, people that's actually having hearings now. You got Lorenzo Johnson case in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I mean, a case where the Supreme Court, the Third Circuit released the guy, the Supreme Court threw him back in on a technicality. Those are the cases that I want to fight on. Innocent people should not be in prison because of technicalities, nowhere in the nation, and that's what we stand for.
But what do you think of this new division in the DA's office that's doing so?
I think that every borough and every state should emulate what Thompson is doing. I mean, here's a man that has courage. I mean, courage, when you're in that position, you should look at cases and see if there was something done wrong. We're not asking to let guilty people out. We're asking to let innocent people out, to let wrongfully convicted people out. And he's doing his job. He should be commended. He should have a statue made of him in Brooklyn whenever he retires.
So this has been a terrible experience, but has it made you stronger, do you think?
Absolutely. It has been a devastating experience, and, I have found strength in God, and I'm here today because of that. Prayer got me here.
We'll come out after.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not bitter. I'm just containing the bitterness. I am bitter, make no doubt about it, but I'm containing it. I'm a man and I have to be disciplined. So I balance those things, the bitterness and my discipline. But I am bitter what happened to me, and make no mistakes about that.
Thank you very much. All this year have meant to your family. What it have done to your family?
It has been breathtaking. It has been a humbling experience, and it's been an enlightening experience. And I hope that a lot of families and those that are still incarcerated to never give up hope like my husband did and just continue to fight. And it just goes for anyone in general. If you believe in something, you have to find the strength. You pray to God and you ask for it, and you just keep fighting.
Now, the DA, in this case, lucky that he decided to move forward and work with them. What would you say about his work so far?
I would say he's doing an enormous job. However, I know that he has a lot of cases he needs to go through and a lot of things that he needs to clean up, and it's a process. And although we would like for everything to happen right now, there is a process. So again, you have to have patience.
What would you say to Mayor de Blasio?
Mayor de Blasio, I know right now he has his own crisis, considering with the NYPD. But overall, I think he's doing a good job for the borough, and I wish him well.
Your full name, please?
Nicole Hamilton.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Session, the Honorable Raymond Guzman presiding. You may be seated. Come to order. Calendar number 6, indictment number 142 of 1991. Derek.
Mr. Hamilton, Jonathan Edelstein.
Robert Gosling, Mr. Hamilton.
Vacate his judgment of conviction pursuant to CPL 44010 on the ground that he is actually innocent. We have the people and defense counsel have been negotiating and talking about this case actually, rather, for this particular issue. Are both sides ready to proceed?
Your Honor,
this particular case, the sole eyewitness against Mr. Hamilton at trial, in analyzing her testimony and her statements, that Mr. Hamilton being the sole eyewitness, they had to depend upon her credibility in order to convict Mr. Hamilton. Because of that, Mr. Hamilton's due process rights were violated by the use of this witness at trial because of the nature of her inconsistency and credibility. As a result, the district attorney has determined that the conviction against Mr. Hamilton cannot stand and should be vacated. Now, because of this primary focus on the due process violation that was that occurred through the use of this particular witness, the people and the conviction review unit did not reach the other issues which were raised by the defendant, that is.
Who've participated in this case with respect to Mr. Hamilton's defense and also my legal career. Derek Hamilton, who sits here today, is someone I've known that Mr. Hamilton never for 1 second doubted his own abilities to convince a court of law that he was innocent. He would file motions after motions. He would ask for hearings. His capacity for churning out legal work was astounding. His spirit was never diminished. This is a man who was resolute when he came to his own innocence. And when Derek was released in 2011, rather than put this behind him, for his courage to take on abuses that occurred, presented to them as the truth, and that it is not somehow prejudiced by an overzealous or unscrupulous member of law enforcement who may be aided or abetted by others who look the other way. Witnesses who we brought in, there are 4 witnesses who we brought in who were alibi witnesses. They spent time with these people, they evaluated them, they conducted their own investigation, they saw individuals, they even went all the way to North Carolina to interview Jules Smith, who again maintained that Mr.
And their willingness to acknowledge that a wrongful conviction was made and that a mistake was made in this case is commendable. The Kings County District Attorney's Office Conviction Review Unit is an example.
Guys, if you want to go out and get
time, with all due respect, counsel, so continue.
Okay,
I would like to thank the clerk and I called from prison and complained about the motion. You can hear me out. You know, and I would like to just thank everybody that's involved in media, Mark Hale for his diligence of it, and Ken Thompson. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so
on the totality of our 440 motion and the subsequent reinvestigation by the people, and we join the people's motion, and we ask the court to vacate Mr. Hamilton's conviction.
Thank you. All right. The court is granting defendant CPL 44010 motion, and hereby, on application of the people, vacates the judgment of conviction. The indictment is dismissed. I want to thank all of the parties involved, and the lawyers. We've been, this has been an ongoing, long process, adjournment after adjournment. Everyone has worked hard. The jury, originally in this case, worked hard to reach a just decision, although at this point it hasn't turned out to be so, but they cannot be faulted because the jury goes on the evidence before. So that a wrong has been corrected is a tribute to the justice system and the hard work of the people that are involved, both on the prosecution side and the defense side. Defense thanks everyone involved. This indictment is now dismissed.
Your Honor.
Guys, if you want to go out and get... Hey, how are you? Yeah.
You got, let's talk. Derek, let's take a couple words.